Hey gang, let's go grab our friends over on Twitch here. Everybody, welcome to the Stratosphere Studio. Bill Whittle. Let's make sure we got all the volumes are doing their voluming. Yes, looks like it. Good to see everybody. We are here on the 19th of February 2026. And this business right here is some more nitrogen work. I get more nitrogen on my face than a lot of lab technicians. Yeah, just staying on top of this stuff, you know. Also having a flyaway hair day. I can't help it. I was rained upon intentionally here in California, which is not allowed apparently. Got him, Coach says the rain finally stopped, Bill, in our backyard skies. No more rain for the next 10 days in Los Angeles, San Gabriel Valley, Pasadena, California. Yep, well, it was raining for a little while, and I personally love it. It's nice to have weather, even if it's only for a couple months. But we are here and swinging, and we're ready to go. I'm going to try and keep this one relatively brief tonight. We've got did a bunch of 3-hour tours, but you know, we'll try and get all those questions. I'm sure we can. We'll jump into them in just a moment here. Let's see. Nope, it's not a new bowling shirt. It's in the it's in rotation, is what we try to say here. So let's see. I think I just have lots of questions tonight. Well, I really better get going then. I've got one tiny little thing to show you. It's super brief, and then we're rolling right in. I just did it to test motion capture performance. It's so brief, I'm not going to set it up. Just going to run it, and we're going to be right back, and we'll get this puppy on with the road here. So let's see. Is it this one?
Risk. Risk is our business. That's what the Starship is all about. That's why we're aboard her.
Ta-da! Ta-da! Yeah, it was fun. So, yeah, everybody's all excited. Apparently stuff is going on with Iran, and Trump just authorized alien disclosure. So let me tell you what that means. They're going to release all of the files, and there's not going to be anything there. Because if the President of the United States was going to release information that had incontrovertible proof of alien contact, it wouldn't be like, yeah, I'll just release the files, you go through it. He would make an announcement. So, again, same thing with the Kennedy assassination files. Nothing. And that's the way it goes. So let's see what we can get. Yeah, it was. And get my other thing up here. We'll just get right into these things. Why don't we knock them down? Gosh, I'm just trying to keep track of all these windows here. Let's do this way. Lots of talk about Iran. I haven't been really keeping up with the latest, but I'm sure that won't slow me down from having an opinion about it, just because I don't know anything. So let's see what we got. This is going to be a lot today. Hope we can get through all of them. If not, well, we won't. All right, what do we got here? We got an Eric Blake, Risha Dark, Brandon Youngert, Rogue College student, Ian Nolan, Eric Oshiro, Guy Balo, Roadrunner, Bob Neef, Steve Young, Mickey McGeeth, another Marusha Dark, Road Rider, and Braden Higby. Okay. We're going to do, we're not going to do any doubles. So we'll just get through them. All right, here we go. Eric Blake, tonight the case of the congressional castration. Yes, I went there. So the latest on the Save America Act, which as you hopefully know is the nationwide election reform bill requiring photo ID and proof of citizen to vote. It's been passed in the House and has sponsorship and or at least public support from 50 plus senators, but instead of at the very least redeclaring the verbal filibuster policy, which would require Democrats to actually speak their filibuster, instead of just going, I won't support cloture, Majority Leader Thune has, well, I'll let our friend Scott Pressler say it. So now we have to go look at a link here. Respectfully, don't tell us that you don't have the time to do the talking filibuster when you just gave the Senate off a week. I mean that nicely. Okay. So riddle me this, Mr. Whittle, for all the talk about lefty men being low T-betas who cater and cower while Republican men are well men, why is it the Republican leadership in Congress is so often reluctant to stand up and actually push for the ideals and agendas that they were literally voted in to push? It's very interesting how the political testosterone over such things falls squarely on the Democratic side, using every aggressive trick in the book to hide their agenda through, while our leadership lathers on and about the high road and dignity and president as if trying to avoid all accountability like common and feminine stereotype. So apparently, here's the question. So why is it so hard for Republicans to man up all the while we presume to brag about being the side of masculinity? This is the never-ending story dealing with this ever since I've been political commentary. I've answered this kind of question about as many times as I can. I don't blame you for bringing it up again, but it just doesn't seem to change. The Democrats are the party of politics, and the Republicans are essentially supposed to be the party of anti-government, but the people who go into government as Republicans go into government. So you always have people like Mitch McConnell and all the rest of these guys who are lifelong politicians in a party that's supposed to be against lifelong politics. And there it is. It never changes. You cannot have politicians be anti-politics. And until we figure that out, we're going to continue to get this kind of stuff. It's that simple. I don't much care about the filibuster so much as I care about getting voter ID passed. To the degree that Republicans keep doing it because they haven't been passed. They've never been. They haven't been systematically and persistently and consistently punished for it. So until they get punished for it, then they're going to just keep doing it. Let's see. Rusha Dark, topic, lock, stock, and ball. I've heard of at least one judge who used social shaming as a punishment for petty crimes. People convicted of things like credit card for shoplifting were made to walk on the median along a highway wearing sandwich boards depicting their crimes while under officer supervision for enforcement and protection. Passerby would shout and berate and humiliate the convicted. Perps often broke down crying, saying it was worse than going to jail. Tim Pool has even suggested similar punishment for gang-related crime, where humiliation is more effective at changing behavior since gangs are about reputation. He suggests making them crawl up and down the streets dressed in diapers, cooing goo goo gaga like babies. Personally, I think we should make this type of punishment commonplace and bring back exile for felonies as well to deport native-born criminals. So I suppose the question is, what's your opinion on humiliation as a crime? And we can save ourselves a lot of time if we try and stay away from, these four paragraph questions. Yes, humiliation works great. Shaming works great. All of these things are more effective than punishment in secret. One of the things that seems to be true about these body cam videos is that it's the humiliation of it that seems to have an effect, especially in cases of sort of cases where you've got especially upper class people or people with a reputation to protect. And when they see themselves behaving like fools on camera, then they get some punishment that actually makes more of a difference than paying a $200 fine or whatever the case may be. Public social proof is the most important psychological effector on human behavior. We've talked about many times the experiment with the different lengths of string and this whole story of the emperor's new clothes and all of that stuff. So it's clear that the one thing that people are most inclined to do is to do what everybody else does, and they're least inclined to do what they perceive other people will look down on them for. So this is why you had the stockades. This is why you had tar and feathering. This is why you had public hangings and public floggings and all of that stuff. So all of this stuff is just, I think it's just clear. There used to be, back when there were small neighborhoods, the police used to have a crime roster, and they'd have the names of the people that broke the law, and that's more effective than any punishment, especially for wealthy people who get hit with a fine, or judges drop the charges, or whatever, or not wealthy people, or this is their 7th time in prison. Doesn't seem to slow them down unless they get put away for a while, so they get another extension of their probation. And as long as we allow laws to be broken, then we'll see laws broken. And it starts out with little laws, which goes on to big laws. So there's that. Brandon Younger. Dear Bill, I see a lot of right-wingers mad at Trump over Epstein, and I certainly think he handled the files release about as badly as possible, short of not doing it, for which he deserves some credit. I agree. However, a lot of people are saying they don't care who's guilty, just prosecute them all. The fair-minded part of me is inclined to agree. The other part, the one that's seen Republicans fall on their swords over and over to appease the media and Democrats, strongly disagrees, setting aside that the Biden DOJ would almost certainly have used Epstein to smear Trump. If not jail him, let's say Trump's guilty. Okay. Should we demand a substantive Democrat scalp before we even consider turning on Trump? By substantive, I mean it can't just be a has-been throw under the bus like Bill Clinton, or am I wrong? And Bill Clinton would be enough of a victory. Still, something tells me if you go after both sides, only one side will end up facing consequences. Look, I'm not inclined to bargain on this one. I don't know who said it. I don't know. It might have been Bondi. I'm not sure, but I think somebody made the case that somebody said openly that if you prosecuted everybody who was guilty, then the entire government would come down. And I'm one of those, let justice be done though the heavens fall kind of guys. I don't think we need to be bargaining on who, or trading scalps on something like this. And it's not just Epstein. It's all of it. It's all of corruption. It's all of this jazz. Gavin Newsom came to California, spot in California, one of these homeless cities, megalopolises, goes for miles on the railroad tracks. And he got out of his car and he had his mask on, he had his gloves. He said, "What's going on here? Nobody told me about this kind of homeless thing." And then there he is on video picking up a pile of garbage and throwing it in a dumpster and talking about who's in charge here, who's responsible for this. Well, you are, and none of them ever pay, man. None of them ever pay. So I say you go after all of them, and I feel fairly confident that Donald Trump would survive that process. I think, in fact, I know he would survive that process because they still haven't come up with anything of any legal consistency. But the Democrats and especially the progressives on TikTok, on YouTube, and everything say that he's a pedophile, traitor, Russian spy, murderer, sex offender, and so on. And they've been telling that to themselves forever because the news media reports it, and this is the thing we're in, right? So I say everybody. I don't mean everybody who's been in contact with Epstein. There's no way to avoid contact with Epstein. When Epstein is trying to contact you, that's his job. So Epstein tried to contact Elon Musk. Elon Musk told him to take a walk. Apparently he tried to contact Joe Rogan. Rogan told him to take a walk. There's no evidence that Trump did anything other than not only throw him out of Mar-a-Lago, but basically tell the police that this guy's kind of fishy. So who's left? Well, Podesta is the one who I've got the most personal evidence for in terms of hearing things from the Epstein files. But all of them, I just want them all to pay. And the more of this Epstein stuff that gets revealed, the more horrific it becomes. So who's going to do it if not the Trump administration? And this is why Trump took such a battering on this, not only because of the way he handled it, but everybody would like to see justice done. That's why he was elected. He was elected because we thought that he was serious about draining the swamp. And so as this stuff just continues to leak out and gets more and more horrific, when? And I don't want to hear that would involve the government shutting down because of so many people. So what is that actually saying? I don't know who said it, but somebody said it. So what that's saying is your body has got so much cancer in it that we can't even attempt to make an operation or chemo or radiation or anything, and you're not even going to die from it. You're just going to have this bone cancer pain forever for the rest of your life. And I'm not one of those people. I'm one of those people that just says, do what you have to do to get this disease out of here. And so, yeah, I don't want to trade Trump for Clinton or Hillary or both or all of them. I'm not interested in trading anybody. And just so you know where I am on this consistently, if it turned out that the only person of any magnitude that there was actual legal actionable evidence against, if it turned out the only person who was in that boat was Donald Trump, then I say throw him in jail too. So it's real simple. It's just real simple. And this constant dissembling of and pretending like it's not murdering babies, I mean, it's really hard to avoid the sense that this is so monstrous and so huge that the only answer for both parties is to just pretend it's not there. But, I mean, you start hearing things that are apparently coming out in these releases where, a couple days before he was arrested, Epstein ordered like a swimming pool amount of sulfuric acid and concrete. And, what are we supposed to do? Are we supposed to just let that go? We're just supposed to let that blow over? If you can't have a moral revolution over the murder of innocent children, the sexual exploitation and then murder of children by your political leaders, if that doesn't cause the population to demand something, then the population is boned. So a lot of people, and I'm one of them, we're riding and are reluctantly going to ride this thing out and see if anything happens. It takes a while to put these cases together. I'm not impressed by Pam Bondi, and I'm certainly not impressed by the argument. The argument. Bush famously said during the 2008 financial crisis that they told him, his economic advisors told him that the angel of death was flying over America, and that if they didn't pump this money into the thing, then the economy's going to just stop, and then we're going to have people fighting over cans of soup and that kind of thing. To which I would say, well, in a case like that, then while I'm against spending and deficit spending, for God's sakes, yes, it's better to put more pretend money into the economy than it is to have the food system collapse. But there's no moral repugnance in that other than this kind of fundamental desire to, live within your means. But this kind of thing is nuts. John Pershing says that's the thing, and evidently most of the women on the island were adults, pretty adult women spending time with rich and powerful men. Shocking, I say. I don't doubt crimes did occur, but I've seen no hard evidence of any of this child sacrifice sort of thing. I don't know, man. there's an awful lot of smoke there for no fire. And even if it's not child sacrifice, the evidence for powerful people responding to Epstein, who says to them, "I've got a really cute 12-year-old for you." What does it take, right? What does it take? So, you know, I am waiting with growing apprehension and dissatisfaction and concern, and it makes you wonder, all right, so what's it going to take? Apparently, I'm rapidly reaching the point of thinking that that there is no evolutionary way out of this moral rot and decay. That's an interesting point, by the way. Gotham Coach says, why aren't they going after the parents of these kids on these islands as well? We had to deal with that with the Michael Jackson thing, which they denied, of course, and the media denied, and everybody denied until a couple of these kids got older. There was a pretty good documentary about one or two of these kids, and what kind of parent, number one, forget about the kind of parent that would, there's a lot of fame chasers out there. And so there's a lot of parents who thought, gee, it sure would be great if Michael Jackson got to be best friends with little Bobby, because Michael Jackson's got a lot of money and he takes a lot of, takes good care of his friends. So that kind of person is a moral, pygmy. But then, if it were me, I don't have any kids, but if it were me, and my son came back from a trip to Michael Jackson's sleepover, which I would never have let him do in the first place, but if he did, then there is no amount of money that Michael Jackson could offer me that would stop me from prosecuting him, both. How many times were people bought off by Michael Jackson? How many times were these charges raised over the course of years when when it was settled out of court? So it's not even what your kid's mental health is worth. It's like, what is the future of children worth to you? What's their dollar value on your, how much money do they have to pay you to make you go away from something like that? Is it 500 grand? Is it 5 million? Is it 50 million? Is it 500 million? 5 billion? What's your price? I don't have a price. I don't have a price. And I suspect most of you don't either. And when people hear that, cynical people say, sure you do. No, sure you don't. There is no price. You cannot buy some people. I'm one of them. I suspect most of you are the same kind of people. If I found out that Michael Jackson had sexually molested a child of mine, and I took it to the police, and the police said there's evidence, it's going to depend on his testimony, and then somebody says here's a check for 5, 10, 15, 50, 100, 200, 500 million dollars. No, that person's going to jail. I don't need the money. I need to be able to sleep at night, and that's a microcosm of what we're seeing here. Somebody mentioned Comey, Battle Smurf. Yeah. Look at the cases of Comey and how his case just got tossed by the judge. How is that a justice system where this whole thing comes down to prosecutorial prerogative and discretion, and this should be absolutely dismantled? You should not have a choice as to whether or not you're going to prosecute somebody. If there is sufficient evidence for prosecution, you should be required by law to prosecute every single one of those cases. And if you don't have enough attorneys for it, then we have to get a little more money and hire some more public defenders if that's the case, and build some more prisons. I don't get this at all. Well, I do, but I just don't like it. Okay, broke college student. Hello, Bill. Given the feelings of ethnic supremacy of Epstein and that he had other influential Jews in his circle, Lex Wessner of the Rothschilds, how has that affected your thoughts on ethnic Jewish influences on politics, specifically within the GOP? If big ethnically Jewish donors, Adelson, for example, want something the base doesn't want, what does the admin do? Not going after illegal hospitality and farm workers because GOP donors don't want those deportations is an unrelated example of this phenomenon. To clarify, I'm keeping it to the GOP because Jews vote heavily Democrat. Black influence and patronage within the Democratic Party makes sense because blacks vote D. Fight over Heritage Foundation. What could be called neocons, of which many GOP Jews could be classified as, are at odds with the populist base. Not saying this ethnic supremacy is all Jews, unique to Jews, or only the ethnic lobby interest. Indians want a similar pull on GOP politics with H-1Bs. Pakistani ethnic solidarity and supremacy was foundational to the scale of the grooming gangs in the UK. Midterms are the 28 impacts. For an example of reform, UK may lose votes from their base over reforms, Muslims, donors, and their donors' interests. Exceptions made for donors' interests for reform, no identity politics, but they have Muslims and Jewish activism groups. American Jewish Hindu Alliance held at Mar-a-Lago is the GOP version. So, I get the question. Let me go back and dig and see if I can figure out exactly what that question is. Here's the question. How has the Jewish supremacy of Epstein affected your thoughts on ethnic Jewish influences on politics, specifically by the GOP? There's a question. I don't blame anybody. I can't blame anybody or any group doing the best to protect their interests. That's what freedom and an open political system does. People lobby for influence, and I don't blame the state of Israel for doing everything in its power to influence American elections in their favor. And the same goes for the Brits, and the same goes for everybody else. And we do the same thing. I don't see anything immoral about that at all. What I do find immoral are American politicians who sacrifice the good of their nation in order to cash a check or to get benefits that benefit them, or to benefit an external group at the expense of the United States. So I'm not blaming the vendors. I'm blaming the buyers. The American politicians can be and are, and I don't have any problem with them being constantly being approached by not just foreign groups, but any groups looking for influence or to buy influence. That's not, I mean, how would you limit that? How would you say, the NRA is a great example. I think the NRA has done an incredible amount of good. The NRA is an interest group whose politics and whose initiatives and policies I agree with as a general rule. Who's to say that they can't try to influence the outcome of elections? That's not where the problem is. The problem is with the American politicians who cave into these kind of things. That's where the problem is. And those are the people who need to be held responsible. So if I'm a representative or a senator, a federal senator, U.S. senator, and somebody comes to me and says, hey, somebody from AIPAC, let's say, we want this, and this. I would look at this and I would say, which one of these things are in the interests of the American people and the American nation, and which ones aren't? And if there were points that were, in my opinion, favorable for America, then I would probably back them. And if they were not favorable for America, I wouldn't. And that seems to be it. You can't look, all these questions and all of these problems come back to the same thing, and that is you cannot have a free government of free people if you don't have enough virtue in the pot to not only have the voters have the final say on chucking out the bad guys, but also to have a virtuous enough population to be able to draw on politicians with some sense of virtue. Now, politicians have been corrupt since the dawn of history, and I get that. The entire miracle of the United States is the Constitution has been written to limit the natural vices of people that go into politics, and there's no one to blame but the voters, right? I mean, there's no one to blame but the voters. The voters put in people who give them stuff, and they don't care if they're corrupt or not. It's selfishness. It is the selfishness of the voters that does this, and I do. You know what I think would solve this problem? I'll tell you what I think would solve this problem. I think what would solve the problem, although again, then you've got the media to help enforce it, but I think that there should be a non-governmental agency, specifically not part of the government, that has legal access to all of the financial transactions that occur during a politician's term in office. And that's how you would find out how Omar can get elected while she's in debt and then have a net worth of $15 million 2-3 years later. That kind of investigative body, completely, bipartisan, and I'm not saying bipartisan, I'm just saying independent. Independent, right? You should be able, look, if you don't want people looking at your books, then you shouldn't run for office, because those financial transactions within the confines of when you are in office should be transparent. And I think if you did that, you would have a lot of this stuff go away, especially if you compared it with the things we talked earlier about social proof. So just thinking off the top of my head here, let's say that the citizens of this great land were to get together and to decide that they've had enough of this. People from both parties were to sit down and decide that we've had enough of this, and what they would demand is transparency of personal finance of all politicians while they're in office. Okay, let's say you were able to get that. Then what would happen? Well, then this same group of people would be able to, with the money they would raise, basically put out ads and spread it around that this person took this money illegally to get these results. And until something like that happens, I don't see how that's going to work. We're working on the legals for the colonies raise, and advisors may in the future tell me this is a bad idea, but this is one of those cases where I just don't care. I want the books for the Colonies LLC and all of those financial statements to be public. I don't think I have to have that, but I want to have that. In other words, anybody, not just people who've contributed, anybody should be able to look at all of these transactions, all of them, and say, well, what about this? Well, where did this payment go? And if we can't answer where $600,000 went, then we should suffer the consequences in terms of people not trusting us with their money in the future. I'm realistic, and I know my people. When I say I know my people, I know the minds of conservatives, and they are generous people. If it turned out that $600,000 was wasted on something that turned out to be stupid, I think that could be forgiven. People make mistakes, and nobody is perfect, and sometimes you make bad decisions. You buy stuff that turns out you didn't need or whatever. I don't think anybody would have a problem with a $600,000 expense that was listed and justified at the time that turned out to be a waste of money. I think people are very fair about that. But if there was $600,000 that just plain disappeared into the void, then I think people would start to have, rightfully so, serious doubts about your stewardship of their money. And I see this as a tremendous selling point for the actual crowdfunding raise. I mean, I don't know how you would actually go out and try to raise money from people without that. So, yeah, and again, the transparency of it is, I'm being ridiculous only because Roadrunner made a great point. He said the payment should be made to upgrade the bitch and Camaro. But let's say that I took of the money that we raise. Let's say we needed $3 million for a season. Let's say, and it turns out I'm not sticking to that number, but that's what we're looking at. And let's say of that $3 million for one season of the colonies, $1 million of it went to upgrading the bitch and Camaro. I would not expect people to continue to fund such a thing, but I wouldn't be lying. I would be, I'd be at serious risk of criminal negligence. Excuse me. But you get what I'm saying, right? So look, if it turns out that, excuse me, that we could audit the books of the people who are in politics so that they could not get, that they would have to show where their millions and millions of dollars came from, that would be a first step. And the reason I think that is at least theoretically achievable is it's not a government agency monitoring politicians. That's the fox watching the henhouse. Yeah, as far as the colony goes, I mean, I could justify getting a new car on that. I could probably conceivably justify even getting paid enough to perhaps get a new Corvette. But there's no way to justify me getting a $500,000 supercar because that's just not stewardship of their money. With that said, if 4 seasons down the road the thing is completely self-financing and we're no longer taking public money in these equity crowdfunding raises, then I can spend it on whatever the hell I want to because it's my money, not your money that I'm promising to do something with. Okay, moving on. Ian Nolan. Bill, James O'Keefe just did the most legendary epic undercover video ever. Undercover video against the board member who got him kicked out of Project Veritas. Seriously, if I thought I was on O'Keefe's radar, I would never talk about anything other than the weather for the rest of my life. And let me just interrupt you for one moment here to say that is how the system is supposed to work. That one paragraph right there. If I thought I was on O'Keefe's radar, I would never talk about anything other than the weather for the rest of my life. So what that means is that a healthy fear of public disclosure of your private dealings is what keeps free people free. And when that watchdog, in terms of the press, becomes utterly a tool of one party, then you're done. Fortunately, in the same way that AI video is democratizing filmmaking, the internet has democratized exposing corruption. And James O'Keefe, as far as I can see, started that process. And I know James, and I love him, and I think he's great. Let me finish the question here. My question for tonight's on a slightly different topic, reflecting on the Epstein stuff that's come out recently. If evil is so viscerally real, do you think that implies an ultimate good, i.e. God? Also, as an aside, should Trump sack Lutnick for lying to Congress about his Epstein associations, even if he didn't engage in the depravity? I don't know really anything about the details about this guy Lutnick. I really don't know who he is. If it turns out that he didn't do anything with Epstein, but lied about it anyway, then yes, he should be fired for lying. Absolutely. Simple. The question I think is really interesting is a number of people have said we haven't seen any hard evidence of the worst of these things. Okay. But, like I said, there's a lot of smoke there. So let's just say that this stuff is real, because I personally, who never believed in these kind of things, I think that the chance of it is actually extremely high. Does that mean? Is that an indication of supernatural evil? Well, my logical part of my brain says people who worship God in church are not producing legal tangible evidence of God. People worshiping Satan, therefore, are not. But my deeper sense, my moral sense is that this level of depravity among our elites, and forget Epstein completely. Just the idea that guys like what's his name, Starmer, are destroying their own country in front of their eyes tells me that the amount of villainy out there is in fact, I don't use the word literally often of something which I'm very proud, but that is literally more than honest people can get their heads around. I've got a right angle that we shot last week called, let's just talk about evil for a second. The title of it is "Do Not Redeem, Do Not Redeem, Do Not Redeem." That's the title of the of my right angle, and it comes from Indian scammers. The reason that I chose this was because there is a movement out there that's been generated by just a handful of YouTube channels, 4 or 5 at the most, maybe 2, 3, of these American computer experts that run with these scammers, pretend to be elderly people mostly, and not only do they lock them up for 10 or 15 hours, but the real joy of it, and it is a visceral satisfaction if you haven't seen these things. It actually makes you believe in truth, justice, and the American way. It's like watching Arthur pull the sword out of the stone, right? So basically, here's what these channels do. They will respond to the spam fraudulent emails. And because they're extremely literate computer guys, they have set up fake bank accounts for themselves. They've set up all kinds of things. So the scammer talks them into installing software that lets a scammer control their computer, and they're fine with that because these guys know exactly what they're doing. In fact, they're counting on it. And so they will take 6-7 hours of their time acting like complete idiots. But ultimately, what the actual mechanism for these people in India getting your money was, up until very recently anyway, gift cards. So let's say you're running a scam in India and you're trying to take $50,000 or $10,000 from I wouldn't try that, Mark, if I were you, Marky Mods. Let's say I want to get $10,000 from a person in America. And so how do you get the money to them? You can't wire them the money because that is traceable, and most banks wouldn't approve it. So what's the mechanism? Well, what the scammers tell the people to do is to go by either Target gift cards or Google gift cards or whatever. So take out 5 cards for $1,000, right? And then you you scratch off the number in the back. I guess I've never used one, but I think this is how it works. So there's like a 16-digit code or something like that, okay? And what the scammers want you to do is to read them the numbers, because when they enter the numbers, that $1,000 gets deposited into their accounts, and it's not traced as international wire funds and all the rest of it. If you do it, I guess, with your own email or whatever, then when you enter the numbers, when you redeem the card, the money you spend on the card comes back to you. So the scammer is watching your screen, and he's telling you to enter the numbers so that he can copy them down. But if you enter the numbers and then press redeem, they don't get the money. You get the money. So what's happening is these people are pretending to be old people, these Americans, and they're typing in 60, and then they're saying, okay, I've got it. Now I'll just hit redeem so that you can get your money, knowing full well that if that happens, they get the money just goes right back to them. Do not redeem, do not redeem, do not redeem, do not redeem. Okay, so why did I bring this up? Well, not only do these people take the life savings of elderly people, and not only do they curse them, you effing idiot! I told you not to. You effing idiot! Who do you think you are? It's mind-boggling. But the reason that all of this stuff I'm bringing into this now is because these guys curse and yell and scream at the people they're trying to scam money from, because they get away with it. I mean, these guys are catching 1 in 10,000. What that means is that these people are talking to elderly Americans like that. They're screaming and yelling at them at the top of their lungs, calling them effing idiots, and do what I tell you and shut up, and they're not paying for it, or else they wouldn't do it. So the most common kind of scam now works like this. The scammers will call somebody and say, it turns out you're due for a refund for some software that you bought. And people think, well, it's a refund. And so they say, yes, ma'am, or a product or whatever, and you're entitled to a refund of $450. Oh, that's wonderful. $450, isn't that wonderful? These are honest people, right? They're senior citizens. They're honest people. Here's a refund for $450. They're not buying things. They're not, so great. So what the scammers do is, and they can control what these people see on their own bank accounts. So what these scammers do is they say, okay, you should check your bank to see if the refund has gone through. And so what happens is, instead of the person thinking that they just got $450, it shows that they got $45,000. And then the scammer goes, oh my God, we made a terrible mistake. We were supposed to send you $450, but we sent you $45,000, and I will lose my job, and all of this stuff. And so they convince these people to go to the bank and take out $45,000 to repay them for the mistake that they made by depositing in your account. And that works enough so that this is now the standard scam. So what does that say? That says that those people are not only taking advantage of the elderly, they're taking advantage of a nation of people who are so fundamentally honest that they will go out of their way to go down to the bank and cash out $45,000 or whatever to buy these cards to pay back somebody who accidentally made a huge deposit in their accounts. You would think most people would just go, great, I'm up $45,000. That's not my fault. It's not my fault. You deposited it. You're the computer expert. But nope. They prey on people's honesty and their gullibility, and especially their not only lack of information about computers, but elderly people. And I'm right on the cusp of that, by the way. That elderly people are afraid of computers. My mom used to do this constantly. She was constantly afraid of, if I push the wrong button, she really thought if she pushed the wrong button, she could bring down the internet. So what kind of people do that? What kind of people take away an old person's life savings by convincing them to have the honesty to go ahead and go down to the bank and send money to people that they've never met because of the goodness of their hearts. It's just plain awful, awful, awful people. And most Americans, especially older Americans who grew up in a more virtuous time, cannot conceive that somebody could be that evil. Eric says, I have fallen prey to a scam before with the Stratacruise. The Stratacruise was not a scam, Eric. If it hadn't been for COVID and everyone bought tickets and then it turns out there was no cruise, then that would have been a scam. But the cruise industry shut down, so it was a case of that wasn't me like not vetting the guy. The guy was an established travel agent who put together a bunch of these things. And when COVID hit, he just took off. But that wasn't a scam. So where do you go with that kind of thing? I guess in the end, for me, it doesn't really matter. Whether it's supernatural evil or not, I want it stamped out with the heel of my boot. And yeah, it's not a big deal. It's not a big reveal or anything. So a couple days ago, so I've been working a lot with ChatGPT, and I don't really like ChatGPT. I don't like the vibe. I much preferred Grok, but I've been doing a lot of work with ChatGPT, pretty much on a daily basis, for 4, 5, 6 months now because of the AI video, and during that course of time, talking about some other things. So that particular AI shard that I have access to has had a lot of interaction with me, a lot. And not all of it is just technical. And so I asked that ChatGPT to write a description of me based on the time that we've spent together. And then I asked it to do a summary as if you were a psychologist and as if you had been my therapist and you were writing like a summary for a new therapist, that kind of thing. And so I got a chance to find out, what is important to me over the course of several months, and it wasn't like, it's like I wasn't buttering up the ChatGPT. What I'm trying to say is I wasn't trying to look good for the ChatGPT. I had no vested interest in it, any of that stuff. Let me see where that is, because it surprised me how clear it was. Yeah, so I originally, I'm user. I said, think about the many conversations we've had and then give me a fair, honest, and comprehensive description. It's cutting off stuff. In fact, it's so cut off, I don't know that it got everything. Let me see if I can. Oh, this. This is not a verbatim description, which is another reason why I think I'm going to be getting off of that. Well, everything I was looking for apparently is not here, which is somewhat depressing. basically, basically what it says is I have very high stewardship ethic. I despise dishonesty, crime. I don't like incompetence, but incompetence is not criminal. I worry about things like loss of standards and so much of this is clipped off, I can't even really make any sense out of it. But what it was basically saying is that I'm a guy who is deeply concerned about the future of civilization, and my tolerance for things that destroy civilization is very low, and I'm a big believer in justice. So, for whatever that's worth. Anyway, I hope O'Keefe gets Project Veritas back. I'm glad Steve Jobs got Apple back, and I don't know. I wouldn't mind seeing. I can't imagine anything worse than getting kicked out of your own company. And when we do the, oh, what about that? Eric says, by the way, Bill, you'll be probably glad to know that Daily Wire Plus has given your shows a more prominent spot in the app in a docu-series section. Well, thank you, Eric. I look for it on the website, and it's like harder to find the shows than it was to do the research for the shows. Okay, Eric Oshiro. Aloha, Bill. Follow up. I saw a super chat over there. I'll get to it towards the end here, or maybe between them or something. Follow up to my question last week about ranked choice voting. The Australian implementation you described sounded like a hot mess, but what about the ranking being a series of rounds and eliminations rather than points? Clearly, the primary goal is free and fair elections, but if that can be secured, is there a way to make one, make everyone's vote count, even if it's not their first choice, and two, avoid costly and time-consuming runoff elections, and three, neutralize spoilers like 1922's Ross Perot. Insert gratuitous plug for PragerU's presidential series featuring not one but two episodes of Bill on Bill. Yeah. Eric, the system as designed is, I think, very good. You need a certain amount of base support in order to get on a ballot, and then you have primaries to see who's serious, and then you go to a winner-take-all election. The Electoral College ensures that that you don't have presidents determined by city people exclusively. City people. The Electoral College is just a mirror of what the Senate and the House are supposed to be before they chop the legs off the Senate with the 17th Amendment, and I don't need to get into all of that, but just a short answer to your question is, I don't see any reason to change the system of voting. I think all we have to do is just enforce the laws, and if it turns out that you change the system, then it's just going to mean that they change the way they cheat. I have not, in my 20 plus years of doing this, ever found a case where the Constitution missed a spot or was wrong, ever. All I find are places where we either don't enforce the law, or we pretend that the law says one thing when it doesn't. The Commerce Clause is an excellent example of that. And there's been a number of cases where the Supreme Court has ruled against something that is so clearly constitutional. The Commerce Clause is another good example of that. It's the more worldly example of the Ten Commandments, as far as I'm concerned. I think they're just, I don't see how they could accidentally be that perfect. But certainly they were, that old line about, it's not such an old line, I guess, America, designed by geniuses, run by idiots. That's it. It's designed by idiots. I'm sorry, designed by geniuses, run by idiots. Go back to the design, read the manual, and do what the manual tells you, and we don't have any problems. But That's why there's so much corruption, because the Constitution is so good at limiting corruption, so good at limiting the illegal amassing of power, that the left has, and corrupt politicians on the right as well, have gone to lengths that the founders could not have imagined. One of them being the idea that a populace could come to the conclusion that there's no such thing as objective truth. That would have seemed incredible to them, and very likely would have seemed to them, well, these people don't deserve a free government. And I think they're pretty much right about that sometimes. But somebody said, I got black pilled. I'm just in a I'm just tired of watching people walk away from justice. And if I was truly black pilled, I'd just pull up the tent and go into the hills with my beans and my ammo and wait for the inevitable. I don't believe that, but I do think that people need to get angry, and I don't think, and I think if the Epstein files don't make us angry enough, then I genuinely don't know what will. So there's that. Guy Balo, did I miss one? No. Greetings, Bill. Should defense attorneys be held accountable if their client reoffends after an innocent verdict? That's a great question right there. Let's see what the rest of it says. Especially when Helen Keller knew that they were guilty the first time. If the lawyers had some serious skin in the game, they might be more concerned about achieving justice for all instead of making a name for themselves as the great lawyer who can get the guilty off scot-free. One option for a punishment is an 80+% tax on their income, the majority of which goes to the victims for every year of maximum sentence for their clients' crimes. Judges and DAs should face similar penalties for letting criminals go free too. I do agree that everything humanly possible needs to be done to protect the innocent, but have we gone so far that the guilty are no longer being punished? Any thoughts? That's a great question. This is a terrible idea, Guy. Our entire system of justice is, I was going to say predicated on the presumption of innocence, but it's actually deeper than that. We accept that that old saw, it is better to let 10 guilty men go free than one innocent man hanged, and I believe that. So the problem is not with defense attorneys. The job of the defense attorney is to get his client off. And anything you do to curtail that limits a defense attorney's ability to get innocent people off. I've often wondered about this. I'm with you in terms of, sort of emotional and spiritual and so on. I can't imagine being a defense attorney knowing that that your client is guilty, but I also think that look, if we lived in a world of angels and we were angels ourselves, we wouldn't need any of these things. So trials and juries and stuff. Trials and juries are the best method that humans have found to interpret and deliver justice in a world where we are not capable of detecting lies reliably. Think about this for a second. And who knows, maybe we'll get there. And there's problems with this too, but for the sake of the argument, let's just say that when, Elon gets Neuralink and the rest of this stuff sorted out, that it would be possible to determine with 0% error whether somebody was telling the truth or not. 0% error. I don't much believe in lie detectors. I failed a lie detector test for something that I was innocent of, and then they retested me, and then that time I came out as telling the truth, and the guy who administered the lie detector says, look, when people have to go back for a second test, the clean get cleaner and the dirty get dirtier. People who are innocent usually sail through the second test. People are guilty, are convinced that they're onto them, and they fail it worse than they did the first time. So, but let's just say, I mean, let's say there was a magic Palantir, and you could rewind history and watch. You could watch the person's behavior on the night in question, and there would be no contesting it. There it is. Then we wouldn't have any problems whatsoever. We wouldn't need juries. We wouldn't need lawyers. We wouldn't need anything. But we live in a world where we do not know what is true. And so a jury system is the best that we've got. And because of that, we have to understand that the best version of this is one where the defense is fighting tooth and nail to keep their client out of jail, and the prosecution is fighting tooth and nail to put them into jail. And this ends up delivering the best result in this imperfect world we live in, especially when the presumption of innocence is there. If you've ever been accused of something you didn't do, I'm here to tell you that I honestly believe that is the worst feeling in the world. I think bearing false witness should be a crime punishable. In fact, I've heard many people say this, and I agree with this wholeheartedly. I think if you accuse somebody of a crime that they didn't do, and it can be proven that you knew that they didn't do it when you make the accusation, I think the person who makes the accusation should have to suffer the exact same penalty as the person would have if they've been found guilty. So, if it turns out you accuse somebody of rape, and it can be proven that not only that person didn't rape you, but you knew that they didn't rape you when they made the accusation, then you go to jail for rape. And I think that's just elementary justice. False accusations, bearing false witness is a horrible, horrible thing. But back to the larger issue. I don't think you should penalize or weaken or in any way dilute the motivation of the defense. You need vigorous defense even when the person is guilty. There is one thing here in this that I think is exactly worthy of a crusade, and that is judges who repeatedly let people out again and again and again without any punishment. I do think it's funny because I completely disagreed with this idea of holding defense attorneys accountable, but I do think that judges should be held legally accountable. For example, if I've seen on a number of these body cam videos where people are convicted of their 6th or 7th DUI. 6th or 7th DUI, and they've gotten probation or fines. If it turned out that somebody I loved was killed by a drunk driver, and that person had already been convicted of multiple DUIs, then in my opinion, the judge that let that person off has murdered the person I love. They are responsible for them. By letting them go again and again, this applies to murderers, applies to armed robbery, applies to all of it. If it turned out that a judge had issued probation for the 4th or 5th or 6th DUI, and that person goes out and kills somebody, and at no point during the process has that person ever suffered consequences for this, I believe I'd hunt that person down. I do. I think I'd hunt him down, and damn the consequences. And so many of these people, like the person that let out that guy that murdered that Ukrainian woman, wasn't even a judge. It was some judicial appointee with no legal background and all the rest of it. And by the way, other countries don't do this. When you watch these body cam videos, sometimes you find out, I don't know, pick a country. I'm inventing this, but let's say it's Sweden or something. You have one DUI, and your driver's license is taken away for 5 years or whatever, or you get a year in prison, something like that. So, you know, there you go. Gummins says immoral defense attorneys are part of the problem. Well, it seems to me, Gummins, that they're, whether they're moral or not is essentially irrelevant. If it turns out that a defense attorney can get a client off when they don't deserve to have been adjudicated not guilty, then that just tells me that the prosecution didn't have enough of a case. John Pershing says 100% concur. My question is, did the judge have a choice? I.e., if the prison is at 100% and a murderer is going to get early release to make room for the drunk driver, then I don't blame the judge. This is a political question. No room in prison. Build more. Amen. It's that simple. Build more prisons. The number of people that commit violent crimes in this country as a percentage of the population is something like 2 to 3%. If you put the 2 to 3% of the worst offenders in prison, 90% or more of the crime would go away. And I hear us, which has been backed up again in just countless studies, and not just studies, just looking at the track record of recidivist criminals. And to me, any society that is aware of the fact that 3% of their population is causing 90% or more of their crime and doesn't put those 3% away is insane. It's an insane society. It's just lost its will to live. Perfect. Eric says, case in point, El Salvador. Absolutely overrun with gangs and crime and murder, and was one of the most violent and least safe places on the planet. And they took all of these gangbangers and chucked them into prison, shaved their heads. They live in absolutely inhumane conditions, and I think it's freaking awesome. And some bleeding heart goes down there. These men are being caged up like animals. Well, they are animals. That's why they're being caged up like animals. And these gangbangers, man, when they get into those Venezuelan prisons, I'm sorry, El Salvadorian prisons, when they say go from here to there, they go in a conga line and they run. And now Big Boutte says El Salvador is now safer per capita than Sweden. It's funny how that works, isn't it? It's such a mystery. No one can possibly figure out what to do about this crime problem. The answer to the crime problem is you put the people who commit crimes in jail. And the more crimes they do, the longer you put them away. And if that means building more prisons and hiring more judges and bailiffs and attorneys and so on, then that's what you do. Well, that's very expensive. It's not as expensive as a crime is. And that's just the dollar cost of the crime. When you ask people what the value of the person who they love more than anything in the world who was murdered, how much would you pay to bring back your spouse who was murdered? How much money would you pay? The answer is all of it, right? You'd pay everything you have. So, yeah, it's you have to ask yourself, how I get the feeling that we are living through a time where it is becoming revealed just how corrupt things are from the top down, just how corrupt they are. I think it's being revealed how much money California has stolen, $10 billion on money that has been raised from people like me and spent on homeless issues, and not a single apartment complex has been built, and not a single mile of track has been run on the 20 billion train to nowhere, and all of this stuff. It's being revealed. And I think that more and more people are absolutely losing faith in government, and that is the precursor to a revolution. And not, I don't think it's necessarily a violent revolution, and I certainly don't think it's a bad revolution. I mean, it may get to the point where the people realize that the people that they are elected are simply rotten to the core, and they've all got to go. So we'll see. Eric says, what do you say about bringing back chain gangs? I don't have mixed feelings about that. I'll tell you one thing. If I was in prison for 20 years and I had a choice of going out and working on the roads with a shovel or staying in the cell all day, I think I'd prefer to be outside, frankly. John Pershing has got a headline: Trump defends imprisoning people despite dropping crime. This is why the left are insane. And they say, yes, well, crime has dropped, but we have the largest incarcerated, population as a percentage in the world. We have 1% of our population is in prison, which makes me say, what would the crime rate be if 2% of the population was in prison? This is why the left is nuts. And by the way, I go through, and a lot of this is the algorithm at work. So I watch something, I see something on YouTube, and I watch that, and I watch a lot of that. So it feeds me more and more and more. And I have been watching a lot lately of a channel. I mentioned it a few times before, but I have to tell you, this guy is a genuine genius. His channel is called Ho Math, and he deals almost exclusively with interpersonal relationships. But one of the things that he keeps coming back to is that women have voted themselves stuff that they didn't earn, and that this entitlement and he called it the great deserveding. It is a profound insight into why white affluent, the awfuls are voting the way they do, why they intentionally vote for something that they should know if they don't know, makes their own personal lives a lot less safe. Mondani's a great example. Watching these liberals walking with Mondani, it's like all of these women are following their biological imperative. It's just exactly like a pride of lions, where all of the female lionesses are part of the harem that's run by the top male. The top dominant alpha male lion doesn't do anything other than fight off other lions. He doesn't hunt. He doesn't have to. The females go out and do all this stuff for him. And watching these women walking down the streets with Mondani, you can tell that every single one of them considers themselves married to this guy. This is their husband, and they have made the state their husband, and so they're in love with the state, and they depend on the state, and they're going to continue to vote for the state until the system collapses, because they're not providers. They're what's the term he uses? Deservers. So it's fantastic. I mean, it's just really great, and he has some amazing insights into why politics in this country works the way it does. His simple chart about, if you rank men and women as here's the 1s, 2s, 3s, 4s, 5s, 6s, 7s, 8s, all the way up to 10s. Before the internet, people got to know each other, and so people naturally paired with people who were more or less on their level. They grew up with them, right? But because of the phone, because of the internet and the smart device, all of the women from the 1s to the 10s are going after the tops, are going after 10, 9, 8 males, and that leaves all the rest of these males with who they're not even people. He's got a little thing he puts up that says not people. So instead of us naturally pairing with people who are on our level in terms of the sexual marketplace, instead of 6 marrying 6s and 4s marrying 4s and 8s marrying 8s, all of the women are going after 2 of the guys, the 10s and the 9s, and everything less than a 10 or a 9 to them is settling. I'm not going to settle. I'm not going to settle for a regular guy. Well, what are you? I've said this before, but on a WhatsApp podcast where you ask them to rate themselves, and they all give themselves 10s or 9s, right? There was one girl who I thought was pretty attractive. I thought she was a 7, and they asked her what she thought she was, and she says, "I think I'm probably a 4 or 5 face and a maybe a 4 body, and I thought, I thought and felt that women instantly got more attractive. Instantly got more attractive. Like that. Not just like nicer to know or better as a friend, more attractive. Because of humility and honesty and self-awareness and all this stuff. But the one thing about the whatever podcast that I'd like to get on that show just so I could drive this nail home is even the few girls that are on there that are 10, some of those girls are genuinely really attractive on the outside. My comment to them would be, if I was sitting on the panel, none of you are 10s. You are perhaps a high 8 or maybe even a 9, whatever. So let's talk to you, right? You've got the best chance of getting a high value man in terms of looks, and that all seems to be what you care about. You can't name 3 countries in the world. You don't know what the capital of the United States of America is. You don't know how many years are in a decade. You don't know what century we live in. Do you honestly think that a man who's making $20 million a year could take you anywhere? Do you not understand how embarrassing it is for you to be as stupid as you are? Even if this guy spends 3 hours of every single day in the sack with you, that still leaves 21 hours of a day when he has to be with you and listen to you. Talk about what? He's going to fly you around the world or take you out on his super yacht? Yes, he has the ability to do that. But do you really think that this guy's going to spend 4 days with you? What the hell is he going to talk to you about? You don't know anything. You're dumb as a box of hammers. And for you to think that you're going to land these guys is not just this physical delusion, but this mental delusion. I've said it before and I'll say it again. I've been to some high-level parties because of the Friends of Abe thing, and I've been to some very, very, very expensive places as a speaker. And I have never, ever in my life, ever, among all of the millionaires and billionaires that I know, I have never once in those rooms seen a woman with a visible tattoo or a piercing that wasn't an earring. Never, ever. Not one of those things. I've never seen a tattoo on any of these women, and I've never seen a piercing on any of these women, and I've never met any of the wives or girlfriends of these guys that were just stupid. So, there you go. That's it. Roadrunner NM. Hey, greetings again, friend Bill. Hey, Roadrunner, how are you? It was too good to wait for next week. After almost 9 decades of public polling, Gallup has decided to stop reporting approval ratings for the president and other political figures. It seems to me that the results are not agreeing with the progressive narrative. Do you think that this is a good thing or a bad thing for the upcoming midterm elections? I actually think it's a good thing for all elections because of what I talked about before, and that is social proof. If the single greatest influence on people's behavior is what other people do or think, then telling them what other people think unjustly influences their decision. In other words, because most people are so susceptible to peer pressure, you could have a person who genuinely supports Donald Trump, but if he or she reads a poll that Trump's approval ratings are 20%, it's going to influence their decision to vote for them. It's not going to measure whether they're going to vote for us. It's going to actually influence them. I don't think they should report approval ratings. I don't think they should report approval ratings or likelihood going into elections. Donald Trump is up 6 points this week. I'm a big believer in freedom of information and all this other stuff, but you can make some cases where this isn't a question of swinging your fist, it's a question of hitting somebody else's nose. If these public opinion polls are influencing people's decisions, then I say the moral harm is greater than the moral good, and it should be illegal, should be banned. Trinity Water says Andrew Wilson's a student of and employs logic. Yeah, Andrew Wilson, watching Andrew Wilson going up against these chicks is like, it's like watching Bambi versus Godzilla, which is the first thing I ever saw as a meme. I saw it when it was, Bambi versus Godzilla goes back to 16 millimeter film. Let's see. Lady Hawk says AOC has an IQ level that is lower than room temperature. The right angle that we put up that broke this morning is a 4-panel picture, cartoon image of AOC cogitating. And the title for this one simply is Thinking is Hard. She's an absolute frickin' moron. Let's see. Cute. Okay, let's see what we got here. Moving on. Just plowing through these. Bob Neef, will Trump retaliate in Iran? I'm so stunned by somebody asking just a question that it's almost like mind-boggling. Bob, I don't know. I know everybody's hyperventilating about Iran. I've heard a lot of people say that that Trump's about to start another war, and I've heard people say, "Well, you thought it was tough in Iraq. Iran has 4 times this and this times that." It's like, if Donald Trump puts boots on the ground in Iran, I will be absolutely gobsmacked, astonished. I don't think that is on the table on any level whatsoever. I don't think Trump wants it. I don't think Hegseth wants it. I would be astonished in that case. My answer to the question that stumped AOC, which was, would you supply military aid to Taiwan in the case of a Chinese invasion? My answer was, I guess I covered this on Monday or something. My answer would be very simple. Listen, it is in national interest of the United States to support Taiwan against the People's Republic of China. People's Republic of China is an outlaw regime that doesn't care about international law, fishes in everybody who's got a coastline on planet Earth has illegal Chinese fishing boats in their waters. So in answer to your question, yes, I would tell you right now as the President of the United States, we will absolutely militarily contribute militarily to the defense of Taiwan against China. Now, let me be clear about this. I don't believe that we should be entangled in foreign wars of any kind. So that means no boots on the ground. I'm not talking about sending them soldiers. I'm not talking about sending them tanks or anything like that to help them defend. And I really mean that we're not going to put Marines on the beach in Taiwan because I don't want any of our Marines coming home in a box unless it's defending this country. So what I will tell you is that it would be our objective to make sure that no Chinese boots get to land on Taiwan. The Chinese have the missile capability to take out all of Taiwan's air defenses. They've got the missile capability to take out virtually all of their ground installations. They have an overwhelming number of missiles within range of Taiwan deployed along the coast of China. But what they do not have is a Navy that can stop our Navy, and I'm not even talking about putting our fighter pilots at risk. If it looks like China was building up for an invasion, you can't just start these things overnight. It takes a significant amount of time to amass forces of that size. If I, as president, saw indications that China was about to launch an invasion of Taiwan, I would make it clear to them that if they decide that they're going to do that, that their transports are going to be sunk in the Strait of Taiwan by American submarines. Next question. That's simple. That's it. We have smart weapons and develop smart weapons because we value our people more than we value our money. And yeah, I'd have no problem with that whatsoever. I would just simply, I would issue orders through the Secretary of Defense that would be passed on to the Joint Chiefs, then to the Chiefs of Naval Operations, and I would say, I do not foresee 2 threats of this magnitude going on at the same time, certainly not at sea. So let's take all of our fast attack subs and let's put them in the South China Sea, and if it comes time that they decide to launch those transports, I want 35 boats there, and the first thing we do is we clear out their hunter killers. Get out there, sink their attack subs so that we can operate with impunity on the surface forces, and then once we've sunk all of their hunter killers, we can just basically operate at our leisure and make sure that not a single transport makes it to Taiwan. End of discussion, end of story. And if you made a statement like that, China would not invade Taiwan. Steve Young, good evening, Bill. Many voters have been disenfranchised by political redistricting and have no representation in the federal government. This seems to be a violation of the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment. How does political districting actually work? Well, like I said earlier, I'll get to those super chats there, buddy. Thank you. And I just don't want to lose the thread here, but I'm going to go back and get all of them. So thank you very much, Jake. And I will read them if you can stick around for a while. That's a great question. It's supposed to work rationally. You're supposed to take a grid and basically say, here's a city or whatever, and here's grids and so on, and you have fair representation that way. But gerrymandering is a thing, and the reason that the Democrats lost their minds about Republicans redrawing the districts is that Republicans were starting to gerrymander their own stuff, and so what the Democrats were outraged about was all of the cheating that we've done for the last 100 years or so, or 150, 200 years. You're threatening to undo it, and that's not fair. I'm not aware. The honest answer is I don't know what the legal rules are, but I can tell you this. There is a way that you can determine congressional districts without any bias whatsoever. That'll mean the left will fight this tooth and nail, hammer and tongs. But I think congressional districts should be determined by lines of latitude and longitude. Period. You don't get to cut this little stretch out because there's more black people here, or run this thing around like this because there's more white people here. Latitude and longitude, just like that. Bam, 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 bam. Was it Polk? I think it was James K. Polk was a very interesting president that nobody ever talks about, but Polk basically grew the country by, he added a third to the nation. And I think it was Polk who, there was a dispute with Canada about where the northern border would be. And Polk said, we think, America thinks, that the border with Canada should be at 54 degrees latitude, 40 minutes. James K. Polk, yeah, sorry, I might have gotten that wrong. 54 degrees, 40 minutes of latitude. That latitude line will be the border between the United States and Canada. Canada thought it should have been lower. And Polk I think it was Polk who ran on a campaign that says 54-40 or fight. Yep, exactly. 54-40 or fight. It's either gonna be at 54-40 or we're gonna go to war over it. So guess what it is? It's 54-40. That's how I would do it. The actual line is 49 degrees. Is that right? Did we not get our 54-40? I thought we did. Is it 49 degrees? Did the Canadians pull one over on us while I wasn't paying attention? I thought we won that discussion. Okay. Yep, all of Great Britain is north of the continental U.S. They compromised. Bastards. All of Great Britain is north of the northern border. There should be something we should be able to figure out very quickly. What latitude is the northern border with Canada? So was it 54-40, or else we'll send a harshly worded letter? Whatever, we'll find out. So anyway, I think that's the only safe and fair way to do it. Like I said, the left will hate it. Churchill's President James K. Polk established U.S.-Canada border west of the Rocky Mountains along the 49th parallel via the Oregon Treaty, blah, 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 moving away from his 54-40 fight. So I guess we lost that. I'm retroactively disappointed in James K. Polk, and he doesn't have my vote anymore. P7 2017 says, here's me thinking they're talking about the F-47 and the new air-to-air missile. That means some wicked stuff is already online. Yeah, when we get the Mako missile and the AIM-240 in F-47s, that's going to. I'm looking forward to that. P7 says, wait, is 0 the equator or the pole? 0 is the equator is 0 latitude, 90 degrees north latitude is the North Pole, 90 degrees south latitude is the South Pole. And a fun little fact that many people used to talk about, just for giggles, if you're standing on the North Pole, no matter which direction you start walking, you are heading south. Okay, so moving on here. Mickey Megath. It's a spoiler. It says understaffed. Oh, here we go. It's good to see Mickey. It's a new name, so at least in the comment section here. Greetings. The reason Pam Bondi and Trump can't get a case in front of a judge and jury is because the Department of Justice is grossly understaffed since most were liberal Democrats and left or got fired. Those remaining will never get a job outside the DOJ. That's a fascinating point, to be honest with you, and that's the point when President Trump should have simply gotten on television and said, look, we do not have the manpower to prosecute the insane amount of corruption that's going on the federal level. So we are making an open appeal to patriot attorneys to take a pay cut and come work for us for this flat rate or whatever the case may be until we have enough of these people in prison. And then they can go home, and then the construction guys can get to work building more prisons for these criminals. Yeah, there you go. Dave Big Booty points out that the prime meridian, that'd be the line of 0 longitude, is at the Greenwich Observatory. It certainly is. There's a giant inlaid brass bar on the ground. That's 0 degrees longitude. You know why it's 0 degrees longitude? Because the British Empire was the British Empire when they decided we need a line of longitude. And the reason they needed a line of longitude was because they were starting to do circumnavigation of the globe, and you can't just set your own line of longitude there. You have to have a standard. And I love the fact that the prime meridian goes through Greenwich Observatory. I think that's really, really cool. And Zulu time, or Universal Time, used to be called Greenwich Mean Time. And I really like, I think it's just, P7 says, why is Greenwich Mean Time so mean? Can't it even try to be nice? Nope. Longitude, there was an entire documentary on longitude. I think it was called Longitude, and how you really could not navigate the planet with any accuracy until you had the invention of a reliable chronometer. You needed to know what time it was in Greenwich in order to navigate. You can always tell your latitude or longitude by measuring the distance of the North Star. Polaris is very, very close to the actual North Celestial Pole. It's very, very close. In fact, at this time in history, the pole wobbles once every 26,000 years, I want to say, it goes around in a circle. And by happy coincidence, human civilization arose at the point in time on that circle where it touches Polaris, and Polaris is closer to that circle than any other star on that ring by far. So we just either got lucky, or maybe it had something to do with it. But Polaris, if you can find Polaris, you can tell two things. You can tell which direction is north, and you can tell how far north of the equator you are. And that's a damn useful thing to have. And Polaris is super easy to find too with the Big Dipper. Most people can spot the Big Dipper in the northern hemisphere, and the two stars At the end of the cup, so I'll do this backwards for you guys. It's 1, 1, 1, and then there's 4 stars in the cup. These 2 guys on the end of the cup are the pointers, and if you shoot them that way, they will take you right to Polaris, which is not a terribly bright star, but a damn useful one to know. So there's that. And thanks for that, Mickey. That's a really good point. I would just put out a call. I'm gonna skip Marusha because I'm not doing doubles today. Road Rider. What the hell, I'll try. Stranger things have happened. I'm only 15th in line and way late to the party. See, stranger things have happened. Here you are. You knew Andrew Breitbart. I did. You know Jeremy Boring and the rest at DW. I do. You might say that you were in the mix with those folks. Also true. The question is, did you personally know Steve Bannon, and was he a grifter off the death of Andrew Breitbart, like it looked from many, many miles away? I think that Steve Bannon is the only major conservative figure that I haven't at least met. I've met and had the pleasure of introducing Glenn Beck. I met Rush Limbaugh, who said he was a fan. I've known just about everybody. I actually did a number of videos with Candace Owens. I did one anyway. Back when she got started with TPUSA, I knew Charlie Kirk, did videos for him. I never met Tim Pool or any of the newer guys, but obviously I know just about everybody. What I knew about Bannon, my first time I ever heard his name was when he was kind of in the film business, and he was a ruthless bastard, really ruthless bastard, and he doesn't seem to have changed much since then. I am not a Steve Bannon fan, and I never have been. Whether he's a grifter or not, I don't know. He was exceedingly aggressive, exceedingly offensive, obnoxious, and mean beyond the Call of Duty. You got to be mean in some ways in any business, I guess. But he was just nasty. He's just nasty. Eric says so. He's the right Harvey Weinstein. I'm not saying that at all. I don't know anything about his personal life. I just know I didn't like him. I've never met him. I still don't like him. And I think I just think he's bad news, man. I don't see any redeeming qualities to Steve Bannon at all. So that's the short form. And I don't really have a long form. Braden Higby. Howdy from Idaho. Hello, Idaho. I love Idaho. Love my Idaho. If you've made it this far, it must be another 4-hour tour. No, I'm moving the mail today, man. I am. My lovely wife is coming over. We're going to grab a bite to eat, and we're going to do some work. I promised I would show something, so I will. I'm glad you mentioned that, or I'm glad I was able to remind myself of this. So no question for me today. Oh my God, keep up the good work. If you need advice on nuclear power or RTGs, let me know. That stuff is my job. Braden, I do, and believe me, I will be taking you up on that in the not too distant future. I did a list today of the things I needed for Cast 27, and it was longer than I thought, but we managed to crack character consistency and really, really, really that is not a problem anymore. That used to be the number one problem. By the way, everybody's talking about what is it? Is it Seedance 2.0? No, Seedance 2.0, the new one that's just knocking everybody out. And they're saying this is the one that's going to kill Hollywood. They're all killing Hollywood. When Sora 1 first came out, 2 years ago now, I guess, maybe a little less even, and it showed an Asian woman walking through the streets of Tokyo, no distortion, and walking through a marketplace, no distortion. Everybody said, "My God, that's absolutely amazing." I wouldn't touch Sora 2 with a 10-foot pole now. So CDATS 2 is amazing. It's a big advance, and it's just another step on the endless parade of steps that will get us to absolutely. If you can tell it's AI, I'm not interested. And what that means now is I have to do a lot of workarounds to get it to look that good. But oh, there's a second page. Oh dear. Hey Braden, can you if you haven't done it already, can you send your contact information to info@billwhittle.com? There's a second page. Well, I didn't know there was a second page. But what's going to happen here in evening, Bill? That was only 2 questions. Steve Young, that's it. Bob Neef says, "What's going to happen in Iran?" I don't know, Bob. I did touch on that answer a little bit, and like I said, I don't think there's any way that there's going to be boots on the ground or anything like that. So, yeah, we're not doing doubles tonight. So there's that. So it leaves Steve Young. Oh, and somebody mentioned, Dave Big Boutte said Coeur d'Alene may be the most beautiful spot in the U.S. of A. Coeur d'Alene is my secret hideaway. That's the undisclosed location I go to. If I wasn't married to a woman who grew up in Siberia and who never wants to be cold again, I would be in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. I just think it's just so bloody beautiful and so easy. When Bert got up there, after living in LA County for 40 years or something, he and his wife went up there went to the DMV to renew their licenses, and they budgeted like 2.5 hours, and he said they were in and out of there in 10 minutes, including them offering to update their voter registration and all that stuff. So that's amazing. Yeah, could you let us know about that? Just send your contact info to info@billwhittle.com, Braden, and we will get you. Yeah, because I love talking about this stuff. I love the reactors and all that jazz. Okay, so finally, Steve Young, evening, Bill. GB has refused American position, as that'd be Great Britain, I guess, to launch airstrikes against Iran from our base on Diego Garcia, BIOT. I should know what that is. Is it British Isles overseas territory? Should America seize that base as American strategically necessary territory? That would make us the pot calling the kettle black. No, I don't think we should be seizing bases. Diego Garcia is a astonishingly important place that very few people have actually heard about. I just think that we don't need to get to that point. However, British Indian Ocean Territory. Oh, okay. However, there comes a point where the British government is no longer an ally of the West. You can make a very convincing case already that the British government is on the side of the Muslim Caliphate. I think you're making an extremely compelling case. In which case, we don't. I would never suggest that we would just go and seize a base from an ally. But if it comes a point where you can show that that ally is not only no longer an ally, but has through its own internal weakness and chicanery become an enemy base, then I would say, okay, well, if it turns out that you're going to deny us this base that we agreed upon, then the ability to, the reason we have the base is so we can use it to conduct military operations. And if you're saying we can't, then that's not really an alliance anymore. And then it'd be time to have that discussion. Eric says, don't we have a base in the Solomons? I would protect the American presence in the central and western Pacific at all costs. Kwajalein, Guam, Tinian, all of these. I don't know if we even still have Tinian, but obviously we have Guam and we have Kwajalein, and they're extremely useful. So Solomons are on the other side of Australia. Yeah. No, they're on the they're not on the other side of Australia. Oh, relative to yes, relative to Iran and the Indian Ocean. Yes, sorry, but not relative to the Pacific. Yeah, the Marianas, all of that stuff. We fought real hard for that territory, and I don't mean to give it up. Yeah, well, what do you know? We got through all those questions, and we did it in pretty quick time. We did it in 2 hours and 10 minutes. Not bad. I've got a couple super chats I need to hit, and then I'm going to show you something of Natasha's here. So let me go back up here. I'll do them in reverse order. Looks like Jake Bobenreith, from what I can see. Says, also, Nick Fuentes called the Iranian protesters traitors. What's your opinion on social media being riddled by bots? Everything feels clownish. Yeah, I think there's going to be a great washout. I think we're starting to see this already from Gen Z, strangely enough, who have lived online, and now they see so much of online as just indistinguishable from the truth. I predicted quite a while ago that that if you can no longer believe the stuff that comes through your phone and you communicate with the world through your phone, then your only alternative is to give up the phone and trust people that you actually know. I genuinely think that all of this misinformation and things like, AI slop and videos and all this stuff is going to destroy this phone as the greatest invention and the greatest disaster in human history. I really do think that that's the way it's going to go, and I think that that as far as the larger picture goes with things like being on the internet, worried about bots and things like that, this is what parents are supposed to pass down to their children. You would expect, at least my generation would expect, that your father would teach you things like how to change a tire and those kind of things. Today's parents, and many conservatives are good at this, many of them. Today's parents are, I think their primary responsibility is to limit contact with the internet. And I think for younger people, if not completely, then to 1 hour a day. And they will howl and rage, but they won't be insane, and they'll be able to read. And if a parent bows to pressure from their child, if the parent can't be strong enough to enforce the kind of giving young people smart devices, you might as well give them heroin or cigarettes. I think heroin and cigarettes both would be healthier for them than these things. So I kind of get the feeling that we're starting to head in that direction. So I hope that keeps up. And we're scrolling up. Here we go. Here's Jake's. Howdy, Bill. Hope you're having a great night. Apparently, Tucker Carlson's brother said that the U.S. is now North Korea. Candace Owens has allegedly involved Charlie Kirk's kids in her nonsense. Two former heavy lifters for the conservative movement that have gone bat guano crazy. And of the two, I have lost all respect for Tucker. I'm horrifically disappointed in him, and I consider that a great tragedy. But Candace is evil. Candace is just one of the most genuinely evil people I've ever seen. What she is doing is way beyond the pale. I'm disappointed in Tucker, and very disappointed, and I believe I know why Tucker does what he does, because Tucker has said to people, not publicly, but earlier we were talking about connections and stuff. Tucker has essentially publicly said, look, I'll do anything for the most money. That's low. But what Candace is doing is she's doing that as well on top of all of this personal bitterness and jealousy and envy and she's just the most. She is just. I can't believe I'm saying this. I completely disagree with Cenk 100% on everything, but I don't consider him to be mentally ill. She is mentally ill. She is really, really cracked, and I suspect those cracks were always there. But Candace Owens is as close to pure evil as I've seen in a long time. There's not. She's just really lost it. And I think what people are seeing is and that maybe we didn't notice when she was doing so much good for the cause, but she's not very smart. You know, I mean, the number of words that she mispronunciates or mispronounces, depending on how educated you are, is really quite astonishing. And and the thing that's even more shocking than Candace's behavior is the number of people, which has admittedly shrunken, and the same for Fuentes as well, are the people who keep buying into the, well, next episode we're going to have all the evidence that I've been promising, you know, all this time. It's like, okay. And finally we have Jonathan L. Johnson. That's a cool name. What do you think about Avalon from Passengers? Was Avalon the ship in Passengers? I'm assuming that's the case. I thought it was an interesting design that I didn't like. Jeremy Boring said Candace had star power. He's right. Jeremy also said that he thought Nick Fuentes was the most standout raw talent that he's ever seen, and I think he's right about that too. That doesn't mean he supports either one of them, and on the contrary, I think, I think she's just. Candace's great strength is that she can lie with such sincerity. I think that's really her primary skill set, and that is a powerful tool of Satan, is the ability to be so convincing in a lie that people really believe her. Jeremy Boring was on trigonometry? I didn't know that. Maybe I did know that. No, she's not coming over early enough to get on camera to say hi. Sorry, I know everybody wants to see her. We'll do another joint episode soon. I'm going to call her as soon as we're done with the show, and she's going to come over and she's going to help. I'm glad I would have forgotten it again because I'm a miserably horrible husband. Here's let me show you what Natasha does with AI, because she is very, very talented. And she goes in a very different direction than I do. Let me see. I wish I had one of her other ones. She's got 3 channels. Where is it? Doom, 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 doom. I didn't. I know I transferred them. I didn't delete it, did I? One moment, please. I like Asmongold too. I don't think he's like, you know, like a super deep insight, but you know, that's why it's one of the many, many things about the colonies is that YouTube moves on. It changes and evolves. Here we go. Still not what I'm really looking for. Hang on a second. Hang on one moment, please. One moment, please. Trash. That should be there. I don't know where it is. Where is it not there? Shoom boom. One last look here. That's very strange. Check one last place. Nope. Sorry about the dead air here. Where did it go? Well, I guess I will just have to show it to you next time. Yeah, I'll grab some of her stuff and we'll show it next time. Anyway, let me. You know what? Here's what I will do. I will show you. She's got the meditation channel, which I've linked to you before, but she's also got something called Retrofuturism, which is really cool. Where did it go? Hang on. There she is. Oh. Nope. That's one of them. You think I would have had this bookmarked by now, and I should have. A lot of Natalia's on YouTube, as it turns out. Let me try this. That's her. Did I find it? Yes, there it is. Here it is. Yeah, honestly, I'm tempted to download this real quick. That's crazy. It's just crazy beautiful. I'll tell you what I'll do. I will pull a couple of these, and I'll run them on Monday. But for now, here's the. This is not her meditation channel. A lot of you guys are very kind to join her meditation channel. But she's also got one where she does like AI fashion. And these, you want to see some gorgeous babes, man? These women are nuts. So she does a lot of sci-fi fashion stuff. So check it out. Check it out right now. Here it comes. Bada bing. Hang on, YouTube. Twitch. Whatever you are. Yeah, Twitch. Oh, Roadrunner found it before I did. Anyway, there it is. It's awesome. And she does the music for it as well. So she's got a tremendous eye, and things are looking up in the AI video department. So there's that. Okay, I think that'll do it. This show's made possible by the members at BillWhittle.com. I'll be back without a frozen lip, hopefully in another couple days, and everything is going very, very well. Really had my brain rewired on September 8th, and it's starting to pay off, so that's great. And moving along on the legal front, our attorney had a bit of a respiratory infection, but he seems to be recovering from that. So everything else is moving. Air Techie, good to see you. Haven't read your emails yet. I'm sorry, I've been underwater, but I'll get back to you as soon as I can, and all of that stuff. So again, thanks for the members for making this possible. We're really glad to be here, and very grateful for all of their support over the years, as well as all of the Strata crowd. So hooray. So until next time, we will see you on Monday night for your very own Stratosphere Studio. Hooray.